may be some places that we just have to stop and practically say, are we doing these
That's
things?
Right.
Are we leading this way? Is this the habit, or is this the tone of our existence, of our home? And when we begin to see where we can line up with that, I think it'll help us. And that's kind of what we're going to do, isn't it? We're going to kind of look at that and say,
some things. How can we foster or nurture that whole attitude of gratitude in home, or that attitude of thankfulness?
Thanks for joining the Home Matters Podcast with Eric and Gina Boggs, where they lead authentic, raw discussions about marriage, family life, kids, intimacy, and sex from a biblical perspective. Here's your host, Eric and Gina Boggs.
Well, I'm Gina, and this is Eric. What are you doing?
Just messing around.
Okay. You see somebody out there?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
welcome to Home Matters. We're glad you're with us today.
We are glad you're with us today. I'm not sure what's going on with him, but
we're just having fun.
I'm glad. Hey, it's a fun time of year.
It's the most wonderful time of the year.
It is, man. We are so close. We are looking Thanksgiving like right in the face.
Yeah, and we're talking earlier, man. It just right at the end of the month, and boom, you're right in the middle of Christmas and all the season celebration, all the food.
Hey, let me mention this before we get into the podcast. We encourage you again, join us in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for Marriage Matters Getaway.
Yep.
The dates for that are February 20th through the 22nd. So it's a little piece out. Yeah, but
we know how it is in the holidays, so during Christmas and all, it's easy to get busy with a lot of stuff.
Go ahead and get registered. We would love to see you there. But we're going to talk about parenting a little bit today. The little ones, the medium-sized ones, and the big ones,
Got Thanksgiving coming up this next week, week from tomorrow. And, man, it is
crazy.
Here. So we're talking about parenting. What kind of parenting? How are we going to? Yeah,
just leading really in thankfulness.
We're going to help them through Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Right? Well, I think that thankfulness and gratefulness should be a part of our life all the time. It's not seasonal.
You mean it's not just next week?
No, it's
I thought it was just one day next week that would be Thanksgiving.
You know better. Okay, so this should be going on in our life all the time, but I think it's just important that we bring focus to it. This particular
should
time
be an
of
easy
year,
time to bring it into focus.
It should be. And look, just as a reminder, parents, you are the model for everything for your kids, and however you go about this modeling, just know that they're going to catch on, all right? They're going to pick up on it. So if we live thankful, grateful lives 24/7, 365, and it's not just a season, right? Thankfulness is not a season. Thanksgiving is not a day, but this is who we are, all right? As parents, this is who we are in leading our homes, mother,
Boy, that's
father.
Big, isn't it? Kind of a scary thought. Everything that we're
really
leading, modeling is, going to be seen in our children. And again, and that comes to even with us, with older kids, that we still model that. Just because they're grown up doesn't mean you stop. I think we continue to lead. So again, wherever you are, even if you don't have kids at home, or if you don't have kids at all, you can still model this, right?
Right. Well, our kids our 4 children that I birthed are married, got grandkids now. So they're not children in our house 24/7. Now, we have a lot of kids in our house, right? But not every single day, all day. But still, we are the model for a thankful, grateful life, which I believe as a Christian, a believer, if you look in the Word, that's thankfulness and gratefulness is a command. It's not just, a byproduct or just something I decide to do as a believer. It's supposed to be who I am.
In the world we're part of, I think it's so easy for us to, if we're not careful, just allow this selfishness or this entitlement to kind of consume.
So true.
Even followers of Christ, that as Christians sometimes, that even there we see children that are just kind of coddled or, again, nurtured in selfishness and entitlement.
Well, that's true. And And as careful as we have to be as parents in understanding, we don't want our child to be looked over or ignored, never chosen, right? You don't want that for your child, but at the same time, we can model and lead them into a life of selfishness and entitlement if we aren't careful. So I think there's a line there we have to be aware of.
It's a line to walk. I think it's easy for any of us to, if we're not careful, because we want our kids to flourish. We want them to succeed.
Absolutely.
At the same time, recognizing why. The why behind the what. Can I say it that way? I think that we have to say, if the what is the flourishing, the success,
right?
Why? Then is it just for you?
It's good.
Is it just for yourself? Are you here just to serve you? I think that's something that we all have to confront.
We struggle with that, and I think in the world that we live in, it even makes it more difficult.
Yeah. A few weeks ago, I had my dad's old Bible out, and in one of the first statements, I took a picture of this and sent it to a bunch of guys in my family and friends as well. But again, I sent it to him. I said, I think that first statement's where, and my dad had written these words. He said, every saved person is called to serve. And I think that it's so easy for us to follow in the example of Jesus, to serve and realize it's not all about you.
That's right.
But boy, at the same time, it's easy not to do that. We live in a world that is self-serving, entitled.
Yeah.
They think they deserve, to go after what they want. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks.
And
so again,
unfortunately,
that opposes that heart of thanksgiving, that heart of thankfulness.
Absolutely, it does. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of times that attitude is what we are teaching our children instead of this thankfulness and gratefulness. Maybe you didn't get the lead role,
right? But
you're still a part. You get to be a part. You get to be a part of the program, or you get to be a part of the team. And there's always another view that we can take.
Yeah.
Right? There's always the view of gratefulness. There's always the attitude of thankfulness that we can walk in. No matter the situation, there is something that you can find to be thankful for.
And the tone of our home, I think, has to be one that nurtures that attitude. I always say an attitude of gratitude. You want to nurture and you want to foster that. I think it has to be almost the tone or the spirit of your home that we think that everybody can live into, that there's a place that you nurture that. When we're talking about parenting, thankfulness, I think it's something we can all live into. So, I think that with that, there may be some places that we just have to stop and practically say, are we doing these things? Right. Are we leading this way? Or is this the habit, or is this the tone of our existence, of our home? And when we begin to see where we can line up with that, I think it'll help us. And that's kind of what we're going to do, isn't it? We're going to kind of look at that and say,
look at some things. How can we foster or nurture that whole attitude of gratitude in home, or that attitude of thankfulness?
Yep.
How can we nurture that? First thing I'd start off with is we just tell our story. I know in our life as a couple, in leading a home, there is no possible way we wouldn't be doing a podcast today if it hadn't been for the Lord.
Right.
If it hadn't been for his miraculous work in our marriage that was coming apart at the seams, if it hadn't been for his provision in our home, if it hadn't been for, all the things, the times we struggled, the times we didn't have the money, the time that God provided, all those different things. So I think your children need to hear that story. Now, there are unnecessary details that, your little kids or your teenager might not need to know about every aspect of your life at their age.
Though, that anybody can stop and talk about the goodness of God in their life.
Yes, and what he has done in your life.
And see where God has provided, where God has taken care of you, where he's been on your side when no one else may have been.
Yeah.
Where you've been through the storms and you've come out on the other side. I think that's one way to foster that thankfulness to
it does it. And I think as well, it gives the example to your child as to where they need to go.
Sure.
In their struggle, in their hard time, how big or little. Maybe it's just on a playground for a 7-year-old that somebody was mean to them. Where do they go? When we have given that story and that example, how God has been there for us every single time, then that gives them a hope.
Keep your testimony alive, then, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Again, where you can look back, and again, you said it, tell the story. You tell your story. I don't think we do that as much as we should sometimes.
I agree.
I think that we need to tell the story more. I think as we lead a natural home and a spiritual home.
Yes.
I think that we need to tell the story more, even in our spiritual house. And wherever you are, just tell where you can follow the lines of where God has brought you to where you are today. So, it's something really, it's maybe oversimplified, or maybe you think it's a simpleton way of looking at it. But again, it's something that we need to, I think, do more than maybe we do. And boy, how it can help any of our homes, right?
Can help all of us, right? What about this one? What about just talking about God's attributes? It kind of goes along with that first one, but just reminding ourselves of the great love of God.
Yeah. That
He's loved us when we were unlovable. He has forgiven us when we have wronged Him and others. Again,
when you talk
mercy.
About His attributes, you can go back and you can do that. You can do that just by reading the Psalm or throughout the Word. Yeah. But again, where the psalmist says, "Lord, you are mightier than the mightiest. Your mercy." It endures His
forever.
Attributes.
The grace of God in our life.
Yeah, just even the forgiveness of God. He's so, the attributes of God. I think again that we should keep those before us.
Yeah,
it should be something that is constant, continual, even as we lead our homes, especially raising kids, that you keep them before us.
I think in raising children, just even in times of discipline. I know you were so good about this, just even in a time of discipline, making sure that, we do this because we love you.
Yeah.
And you know what, in raising our children, even to say, you know what, you might have messed up and you did it wrong. And, I'm not pleased with what you did. And you know what, God's not pleased with that attitude you just had either, but He still loves you because that's just who God is.
And we do too.
Yeah. You bring that
you say that. You mentioned that. I don't always remember doing that. I don't always remember. I remember times too where it's just in the moment where, I help them. I always say, my discipline. I
was more in the moment, just right in the very moment.
Yeah.
And then you were be in the moment too, but you were good about coming back around.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I'm just saying that there may have been times I did it perfectly, but there were a lot of times I didn't. But there was always that place where you see, you're bringing out the fact that we are modeling. We're modeling Thanksgiving, and one of the ways we model that is to reflect, again, God's attributes. And where God continues to love, we model that by continuing to love.
Yeah.
But again, it is that place.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
Another one?
You got some?
I do.
Go ahead.
Living a life of worship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that worship is not just an activity that we take part in, at a church service or on a Sunday, but that it is who we are, that we live that life, that we are grateful. Gratefulness and thankfulness is part of worship to me.
Sure.
Yeah, that we're grateful, we're thankful for who God is, for what He's done, but that we live that out at home. That even when our children know that we are aggravated, or even if they know we are stressed, that even in that time, they can see us worshiping. And not that it's just a little, I don't know how to explain, that it is who we are. It's not just something we say. It's not just
something that we do or say. It's not just something that is our religious activity.
Right.
But it is who we are. I think we're worshipers by spirit.
Yes.
Jesus said, you remember the woman at the well? He said there's a time, John 4, where you worship me in spirit and truth.
Yeah.
And here's what he said there too. He said the fathers are seeking such that'll worship him.
That's what he's looking for.
Yeah. And I think that in that, I think that we recognize that as worshipers, that is who we are out of our nature now.
Yes.
And that we give room for that. It is an expression. There's some expression. I've always said too, you always have to recognize that worship is something that requires something from you. It'll cost you somewhere. You'll have to bring an offering.
Yeah.
And when I say that, there's
a sacrifice, right?
I always say true worship don't really take place until something dies. And I say either myself or my attitude or my feelings or my,
my wants and desires.
Yeah. And I'm just saying that worship actually is when you become less and you're willing to give up self and give honor and glory to God. So
absolutely.
Again, in the Old Testament, an animal had to die. If they were going to worship, they were going to come and worship. Blood had to be shed. And again, Jesus paid that price once for all. So now because something dies.
Yeah.
Something has died. He has died, but also we die with him. We take up his cross. We die.
That's good,
we die his death. But that's true worship, where worship takes place in our life.
I think practically that is just as simple as playing praise music.
Sure.
Listening to praise music, going down the road. I was in the car with my daughter the other day and my little granddaughter and little grandson, who is only 1, are praising and just singing. And they had me in tears just riding in the front seat of the car, because my daughter and I were just talking about something else. We're not even paying attention to the song that's on, but there's a praise song playing. And then all of a sudden the kids in the back are singing. My little 1-year-old grandson, he's like doing like this when I'm looking up, the little camera thing.
If you're listening on podcast, she's doing the wave.
Yeah, he's worshiping. His little hand was up. And that is a life of worship that is being modeled, that is going on all the time. We were not even intentionally saying, all right, we're going to ride down the road and sing a praise song right now. Worship. We were in the middle of talking about something totally different, but that was going on at the same time. That is modeling the life of
raising thankful kids. Again, I think it's something that is intentional.
Yeah.
Not mechanical, but intentional.
Yes, that's right, important. Not mechanical. Yeah. It's just part of who we are. Let's hit this one because we're about to run out of time, but just showing thankfulness for all things, for everything. Asking your kid, what are you thankful for? I think about my other little grandson that's 3. His life rotates around his blankie and his passy when he gets sleepy. And I was thinking when I said this, if I asked Brett what he is thankful for, he would probably say blankie, passy. So whatever
time to give up the passy.
I know, but I'm not taking it from him.
I'm not
either.
His
mama do that.
It's mom and daddy's
I'm just
job.
saying, whether it's the sun shining outside, thankful. Sure. We had a storm hit our area, terrible, devastating back a little while ago now. And man, we were without power for, a week. Some people in our area much longer. And, when that air conditioning came back on, because it was hot.
Yeah, it was hot still.
Yeah, it was still hot. It was October, I think, wasn't it? But it was still hot.
Into September.
So I'm just like, thank you, Jesus, for air conditioning. And I was not being mechanical. I was 100% thankful for that.
Genuine.
I was genuine.
But again, just the practical side of what you're saying.
That's modeling, though, right?
Again, nurturing a thankful child. They ought to be thankful for the food on their table or the shirt on their back or the little things that we so take for granted.
Absolutely.
I said a lot during that storm. At best, we've not suffered. We've been inconvenienced.
Yes,
and that is so true.
Inconvenienced.
But there are things that in our life that we just take so for granted. We just assume.
Yeah.
And there are people in parts of this world that would love
that's so true.
To have electricity and love to have lights.
Yeah.
That they do not. And
we take those things for granted.
Those are things. And again, what we're saying is just that in the sense of just the general practical things in life, we're to teach them, hey, aren't you thankful?
Lead in them.
Aren't you thankful that you have this piece of candy right now? Aren't thankful that you have a glass of milk to drink?
That's right. Anything, in all things. And, I think of something as simple as, and I do this with my girls all the time, if you get to the cash register and there's a discount on something and you didn't really know you were getting a discount, I mean, I'm thankful for that. And you say, well, I don't know if God gave you that discount or not. Well, whether he did or not, I'm still thankful for it.
That's right.
So you just live that life all the time. And I think we said it in a podcast recently, that attitudes are contagious.
Yeah.
And so if we as parents lead with an attitude of thankfulness and gratefulness, that does become contagious in our children, so that we raise children that are not selfish, that are not entitled.
It is an attitude of gratitude. Live your life that way.
Yes, that's right.
Teach your children.
Again,
it's
time. Yeah.
Hope you have a great Thanksgiving. I know we'll be with you again next Wednesday, but again, hope you have a great Thanksgiving. Hope things are well with you and well with your home.
That's right.
Your home matters. Hey,
it does, man. We are thankful for you. We do not take for granted your time every week. So thank you for tuning in. Share the podcast. We can't wait to see you next week.
Yeah. God bless.